Hey friends, most of us are all in the same boat when it comes to ammunition. It's scarce, but when you do find it, many of us are simply not willing to pay the price that they're asking for it. It's not even unreasonable prices, it's ridiculous prices. In many cases, I'm just sitting back, looking at these prices going, there's no way I would ever pay that. I've got enough ammunition sitting in my carry gun or in my, hit the fan type gun, that I'm not willing to shoot those rounds and get into that and pay the amount of money that's being asked for it to replace those rounds. So what does that make us do? You know, in many cases what it makes us do, it makes our skills get a little bit less sharp. It dulls our skills. In other words, we don't have that trigger time. We don't have that draw time. If you do, hopefully you are practicing your draw. A lot of these skills can be done at home. That's why I'm filming it at this setting in my backyard, because I want you to see that you don't have to be at the range. Now, I still encourage you to go to the range if it's possible, but there's a lot of things we can work on here. We can work on the draw, we can work on trigger time. One of the biggest disadvantages of trigger time is most of us are carrying a striker-fired pistol. Like today, I have my Glock cutaway gun. It's not loaded, but it's also not able to fire because it is a Glock cutaway gun. This is my normal carry gun, a Glock 19. Problem with dry firing is I'm racking that slide, I'm getting that first shot, I don't get a follow-up shot unless I'm faking the trigger pull. Faking the trigger pull from a muscle memory standpoint is not a great idea. Number one, you're not going through that exercise of actually having that second trigger pull, that actual pull of the trigger. And on top of that, if we're gonna talk about muscle memory, you're kind of conditioning yourself to have a less effective pull on that second pull of that trigger because it's not a full pull through. I've found a pretty cool little tool that's overpriced, and I'm going to say that ahead of time, but it's called the dry fire mag. The dry fire mag is a relatively cheap design. The plastic is not that reinforced polymer that we're used to on a Glock or any kind of a striker fired pistol. The overall design that has the little spring in here with the clicker that's going to help you reset that trigger whenever you're shooting it is a pretty cool design. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take your pistol. You want to make sure that your trigger is still forward. In other words, don't drop your trigger. You want that trigger to be set and ready to go as far as everything on fire. You insert your magazine in. Now I will say that it's a pretty strong and hard, firm insertion of that magazine. You're going to hear a pretty distinct click once it gets in up into that, through the magazine well and up into that striker area all inside. And I'm trying to show you some pretty good shots of that inside using this cutaway. Then you're ready to go ahead and initiate that first trigger pull. Now that first trigger pull you're going to find is a very strong trigger pull, stronger than normal. So again, from a muscle memory standpoint, don't expect this to be normal. Go ahead and get that first strong trigger pull out of the way. Okay, now that everything is pretty much set, the magazine now is doing its job. You'll notice that next pull is very, very close to what your normal trigger pull is gonna be on your striker fire. Now, all that is initiated from the spring that's on the top of this dry fire mag. That's what is simulating the strength and the weight of your trigger pull. You can actually adjust that spring tension using different springs to give you more closely defined as what your normal trigger pull would be on your striker fired gun in case you have a little bit lighter trigger pull. I found that the stock spring that came with the dry fire magazine was adequate for what my normal carry gun is. I don't modify my carry guns for legal reasons, but also because I don't feel that it's necessary. So the one out of the box was perfect for what my stock striker fired pistol Glock was. So the cool thing is now you're able to, whether it's drawing and getting into position, you're gonna now have a secondary pull. Now I will say this, based on, again, like I said, the cheapness of how this thing is made and the type of material that it is, it sounds real janky, it sounds real cheap. It sounds like a toy, but it gives you a full travel of your trigger. The trigger travel is what it should be on a striker fired pistol for that follow-up shot. So it's going to give you, again, your muscle memory. It's giving you a full follow through. That's what I want. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to get to a point where when I'm actually conditioning myself for a normal real life situation where I may have to actually defend myself and my family, I can pull and know that I've got everything that I'm trying to do to condition myself for subconscious operations that my body's just going to do on its own. It's falling into that comfort zone of actual ammunition. Now, obviously, I don't have the recoil, so getting back on target, I'm not experiencing that from a muscle memory standpoint. The fact that now I can put my finger out there on that trigger and feel like I've got the exact same type of pull. And it's not necessarily the weight, it's more the travel. You're having that trigger travel. You don't want to short stroke a trigger whenever you actually are going for that weapon to need it for an exact purpose, which is to defend yourself and your family. This way, there's no risk of that muscle memory being programmed the wrong way. You're programming it to the exact strength that finger needs to be, and it hits that wall in the back and goes straight back forward because it feels right. It feels comfortable. The last thing that I want to do is have part of my muscle memory routine as being that. That's not what I want to be. I want to know that see, I did that wrong. You're supposed to have the trigger forward. Let me get this thing out of here. Reset it, keep your trigger forward. Now it's ready. Get that first trigger pull out of the way, and now I'm good. Again, I full follow through. My finger, my hands, my arm, everything is gonna feel like I'm dropping into a saddle that's about 30 years old on a horse. It feels all broken into, it feels comfortable, it feels familiar. Dry fire mag, I'll put the link in the description below. Go check them out if you got a chance.